All right, we're recording. Welcome and thank you for attending today. My name is Kyle Hunt. I'm the owner of Remodel Your Marketing. I'm up here in rainy, overcast Michigan. It's a beautiful August afternoon, and just like to thank you for attending. So I work exclusively with remodelers across the country, helping them do a few things. One being transform their sales process, organize their sales pipeline, and automate their follow-up and stay in touch marketing. And I've been working exclusively with remodelers for the last 9 years. I'm here, like I said, in Michigan. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We've got 4 kids, 11, 9, almost 6, and 4. A little bit more just about me personally, so you know who's talking. I'm excited about Michigan football starting back up soon. That's exciting. It's almost football season. I married my wife because she's the love of my life, but her father also has season tickets to Michigan football. That was part of the deal that I signed up for. Very active in our church. Have a honey-do list around the house that doesn't seem to get fully checked off ever. I've logged 36 holes of golf this summer, which is more than I did all of last summer, so doing all right with that. And more relevantly for you guys, I just really enjoy my work. I enjoy this remodeling industry, the people in it, and I'm having a lot of fun just running my business and working with a great group of remodeling clients around the country. If you heard in that little intro, it's been 9 years since I started my business, and this is totally unrelated to what we're talking about today, but I thought worthy to share. I had a little thing pop up. I do this online private journal. Somebody, when we had our first kid, said, Kyle, make sure you're journaling through this whole fatherhood thing. And I took that advice, and every so often I go in there and kind of update and do this online journal. And I saw a post the other day that was from 9 years ago, which was the week that I started my business. Such an interesting thing to read through where my head was at, the excitement level, why I was quitting my job and starting my business. And all I'm about today is just trying to give you guys value, give you ideas, make you think, try new things. This is unrelated, but if you don't journal, whether business related, whether personal related, start doing it. Whether it's a free online journal, whether it's a written journal, it's so interesting to go back and see what you wrote, to be reminded of truths, to be reminded of where your mind was at when you made this decision or that decision. So I encourage you to do that. Now, more relevant for you remodelers out there, before I get started into the content, I wanted to bring your attention. There's a free Facebook group, private Facebook group that I run called Remodelers Community. And if you want to write that down, Remodelers with an S Community, we have 161 remodelers in that group, just sharing ideas, best practices, encouraging one another. Please begin to consider joining that group. I think you'll enjoy it. In the follow-up email that I send to you, I'll put a link directly to it. But also, if you go to Facebook and just type in Remodelers Community, you'll see that in there. And last bit of housekeeping, again, chat box, feel free to, I won't kind of look at it as we go, but from time to time, such as right now, I'll just take a quick look. Look at that, we got somebody from Australia. Now, time out. This is worthy of consideration for everybody. Scott Bell, who I've exchanged many emails with over time. It's 3 a.m. and this man is up watching this webinar. I've got Buckeyes talking smack about Michigan football. All right, keep it up in the comments. I'll check that every so often, but please do use that chat box, and we'll have some Q&A time at the end here. So what we're going to focus on today is what happens before, during, and after the initial phone call that you have with a new remodeling prospect. It's a very small part of the process that we're going to focus 100% of our attention on today. And what I think is kind of interesting is I put that question on the sign up when you guys RSVP'd. I put this question: 1 to 10, rate your current sales process. And the metrics were 1 equals awful and 10 equals awesome. And I did a quick little export and just did an average. And what it came out to of all of your answers, I had a little over 70 people RSVP for the webinar, was an average of 6.18. AKA, there's room for improvement, right? There's always room for improvement, whether it is your initial phone call with a new prospect, which we're going to dig into today, whether it's your overall sales process, whether it's the marketing side of things, whether it is how you manage your team, whether it is your job costing, whether it is how organized your QuickBooks are, or your P&L is. We always need to be striving towards improving. I thought it was kind of interesting how 6.18 is the average. So we had some people at 4, we had some people with 8s. This is why you're on this call today. You're investing the time, and I appreciate that. And it kind of ties into my one goal for you today. My one goal is that when you leave this webinar, when you leave this call, that you're going to have one clear takeaway. One clear takeaway, not 10 takeaways, not 5 takeaways, maybe 2 takeaways. But my point here is that really zero in and try to grab 1, maybe 2 ideas that you're actually going to implement. We don't lack ideas. As business people, as salespeople, we do not lack ideas. We've got ideas coming from all over the place. What we lack is how do we prioritize those ideas? And then we lack implementing because we try to do too many things at once instead of really focusing in on a small number of things. So that's my biggest goal. And I will do my best to deliver on that goal, but also it takes your attention, it takes your thinking as I go through this to make sure that you have one clear takeaway. All right, so there's so many areas of your sales and marketing system to kind of consider. You can see a bunch of them listed on the screen here. And if you think of things on the production side, even the pre-construction conference, the handoff between sales and production, your ordering system, the way you invoice, the punch list at the end of a remodeling project, your final walkthrough, all of that stuff. When you think about all the different areas of your business, your sales, marketing, production, etc., I would argue that the most important moment in all of these, out of all of these, is the initial phone call you have with a prospect. The initial phone call you have with a prospect. Now, why do I say that? Here's what I do. This is how I support my family. This is what I do all day, every day. I'm working with remodelers on their overall business. There's a lot of different parts of that business. And what I said very unequivocally and very clearly is that I would argue that the most important part is the initial phone call you have with a new prospect. And the reason I say that is a bunch of reasons. Let me just kind of rattle them off. It's the first impression, right? You only get one chance to make a first impression. That's true. It's true. It's a first impression. Don't undervalue the importance of that. And all of these things that I'm about to list out come out during this initial call. Are you into the call? Are you distracted or are you focused? The person at the other end is paying attention to this. Are you truly listening to them? Are you asking great questions? Are you taking the time to differentiate yourself and your business, or do you sound the same as everybody else? Are you knowledgeable? Do they sense that you care? Are we friendly? Are we professional? What is doing business with us going to be like? This is the first opportunity for them to get a taste of that. It's an opportunity for you to learn about them and their project, for you to start qualifying them. And that's not a terrible or a bad word. We need to, this is why part of this process is so important, this initial call, is because we need to be protecting our time. As remodelers, we cannot run out on every single lead that comes in. We need to qualify them. We need to see if this is a good fit for us and if we're a good fit for them. It's an opportunity to show them that we're organized, that we have a process for you to lay out these 5 powerful words, these 5 power words. This is how we work. It's an opportunity for you to elegantly lead them through the call, not in a pushy way, but in an elegant, professional way. It's an opportunity for you to talk about what they're looking to invest in the project. It's an opportunity for you to track your marketing and how they found out about you. There's just so much packed into this call. That's why it's so important for us to just continue to get better and better at it, to improve with every call. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today, are some of the strategies, some of the ideas for that. So you receive a lead. If you're like a lot of my remodeling clients, it may have been an email submission. Maybe they sent you a message on Facebook. Maybe they left you a voicemail. So you've got this person's name and information and address in your hands. It's time to call them, right? No, it is not time to call them yet. We will get into the actual contents of the initial call, but not so fast, not so fast. If they've submitted the form or you've received their information, there's a few things that we want to do before we call, all right, before we call. So if you're a good and professional salesperson, you're going to want to do your research. It'd be foolish, given the technology that we have at our fingertips nowadays, it would be foolish not to find out some things about the prospect, about their home, before you speak or meet with them. Professional salespeople will take a little bit of time to do a little bit of research. Now, What should we do? What could we do? What would 5 or 10 minutes of quick searching online give us or arm us with or help us with? First thing would be LinkedIn. If you search on LinkedIn and you find out they're an engineer, so you go on LinkedIn, you find out they're an engineer, versus you go there and they're maybe not there and you do a little bit more research and you realize they're a stay-at-home mom who loves Joanna Gaines and who loves her kids and loves to be on Pinterest and house. Those two, engineer versus that stay-at-home Joanna Gaines lover, the way that you approach them, the way that you sell them, the way that you talk to them, the way that you gets them excited about a project is different, right? It's just flat out different. One on one side, one on the other. I pick engineer because generally speaking, they're very detail oriented, right? So if I go on LinkedIn and I see that this lead is an engineer, that's some information that I can keep in my back pocket. It may influence my selling approach that I take just based on what I know about what they do. Okay. You can find out if they've worked in the same area for 2 years or 20 years. A lot of times on LinkedIn, they have their resume. You can see if they're recently moved here or not. You can read their recommendations on LinkedIn. Do people love to work with them? How do people describe that person? Look at those little recommendations. Do you have any mutual connections with them? You go on LinkedIn and you find somebody local like that. And if you have 200, 300, 400 contacts yourself, do you have any mutual connections? That's going to pop up right there. And all of a sudden, wow, there's somebody that may be a mutual connection, that may be a conversation point. So I spend a minute or two on LinkedIn and take a look at that. I go to Google, just type in their name and maybe their city in Google. What pops up? Are they involved in their community? Did they just volunteer at this event? Did they just get quoted in this newspaper? Are they involved in their local government? Just a quick little search will give you some insight there. Also may give you some red flags. You never know what might pop up. So do a little Google search. Now grab your address that you already have, type that into Google Maps, right? You can type it into Google Maps, you click on a couple things, and all of a sudden we're on the street view, right? We zoom in on the Google Earth street view. Has the home had an addition added to it? Is the home right next to a property line? Something maybe that for you to consider. On the screen there, I just did a quick screen capture of our home. And you kind of see the shape of it. It's a Dutch colonial, and you kind of get a little feel for it. Very, very interesting. I did this, and evidently we were having a party. That little white thing in front there is a tent. So whenever that little airplane came over our community, it's probably been a few years ago. I don't remember any recent big tent parties that we've had. That's there. So you learn a little bit about them there. You go to the street view. Does the neighborhood look well maintained and sharp? Is it older, newer neighborhood? Just stop and think. You pull up the map. Do you have any previous clients in that area? That's relevant, right? Maybe they know that previous client. Maybe there's a little know, like, and trust you can build through that. Good information to have. Maybe you do a quick stop on Zillow. Zillow's not the tried and true. It doesn't have every detail or information, but it gives you a zestimate, right? You can kind of get a feel for the value of the home. You can see if it's been recently sold or bought. You can get some details about their home. Not a bad thing to do, right? So a couple minutes taking me to do those couple things. Now I'll go into one that some people kind of throw their hands up and go, yeah, you sure about that, Kyle? I don't know about that. Click on Facebook. Right? So more of a personal side now, but if I type in somebody's name on Facebook, for example, I brought this up when I spoke to a group of remodelers a few months ago. Do a little bit of research before you get on the phone with them. And I said, look them up on Facebook before you talk to them. And the first and immediate response from somebody in the audience, this was a little in-person session I was doing, she raised her hand and said, wait, so you want us to Facebook stalk them? Facebook stalk them. Such a negative connotation, right? Everyone laughed and we had a good time with it. So let's stop calling it stalking. Let's just call it Facebook research, or doing what a professional salesperson would do to understand as much as they can about the prospect. It's a mouthful, but let's call it that. I had a remodeler reach out to me. I looked up their name on Facebook. I got to see their picture plus 20 other pictures. I know they have kids. I know they're married. I know they celebrated a major anniversary last year. I know they're a Detroit Tigers fan. I know about how old they are. I saw a couple of other common interests that they have because they can see what pages they like, etc. You got a feel for, quote unquote, how they roll, right? You see pictures, you can kind of see homes and cars and what their lifestyle's like. I saw some of their posts. Some people have permissions set up real tight, others don't. See that they seem kind of friendly and polite. And then similar to LinkedIn, I saw that I had a mutual connection, an industry colleague of mine that both of us are friends with. Okay. Now, here's the key that I want to kind of capstone with this with. I believe it's wise to do this research before we pick up the phone and call them. It arms me with information about who they are, but also know this: you're playing with a little bit of fire. You're playing with a little bit of fire. It would be foolish for me to come out and say, how about them Tigers? And them to kind of be like, that's kind of weird. How do they know that I'm a Tigers fan? Do I have a bumper sticker or what's going on here? Right? But I can bring it up in a discreet way, of course, right? I'm a professional salesperson. I can use this information without coming across weird, right? Or that's the key to this. Be a great salesperson, do your homework, use the tools that we have at our disposal, but use them responsibly. Don't freak people out. Don't make them scratch their head and say, how did you know that? Right? And if you're a solid salesperson, you can elegantly figure out a way to do your research and to use it effectively and in a professional way. All right, so that's the first thing. Do our research. Now, of course, after we've done that, now we're ready to call them, right? Incorrect. We are not ready to call them yet. Let me pause there for a second. I'm going to look in the little chat box, see if there's any questions thus far. Feel free to type them in if you'd like. I don't see any, so we're going to keep cruising, though. It's not time to make the phone call yet. The next thing that we want to do is we want to get in the right mindset. You heard me earlier. This is a very, very important part of the whole process. First impression, all of that. And we need to be 100% focused on the call. Don't be multitasking, right? There's just a huge difference between being focused and truly being focused. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I can't remember the example the other day, but you just when you're truly focused, when you're like, let's say you're in person, you're talking to, I think this is where it was. I was talking to my wife Sarah, and there's times where I'm kind of listening to her, and there's kids, running around and all that too. And then there's times where I'm truly listening to her. Truly listening to her, listening to the inflection, listening to her body language, listening to what's going on around there, really actually listening to the words, not just thinking about what I'm going to say next. There's just a different level of it. And so often in our industry, and especially when we're busy and we've got a lot of things to do and we wear a lot of hats as remodelers, well, I've got some dashboard time. I'm driving between this job and that job. Here's my prospect that I need to call back. I'll just give him a call while I'm driving. You see the disconnect here? Very, very important part of the process. And I'm going to call them when I'm driving around and not focused. Just right, it doesn't work. So get in the right mindset. Be 100% focused on the call. Don't be multitasking. Don't be driving. Be 100% into it. Smile. You can see, quote unquote, right, a smile through the phone. Be friendly. Be upbeat. What's the purpose of this call? Right? What's our goal? It's to make a great first impression, to get to know them, to get to know the project, to see if they're a good fit for you, to set up the next step if appropriate. It's also to serve them. You might not be the best fit, but whoever you're talking to there, they probably don't know nearly as much. No, they don't know nearly as much about remodeling as you. They may just be studied up by watching HGTV and they think this project's going to be $5,000 and it's going to get done in a week, right? Our job is to educate them, is to help them, is to serve them. Even if we're not the right person, maybe it's to refer somebody out to them. Or if we are the right person, is to give them a remarkable experience. So we need to listen. We need to be present. We need to be focused. And we need to strive for excellence on this call, not just kind of sort of good, right? And there's a difference there. And I want you to hear that kind of loud and clear. All right. So once you've pondered those things and you're focused and not distracted, let's make sure we don't pull out a blank sheet of paper. Let's make sure we have a process, that we're not shooting from the hip. One of the things that I will link to in the email I'll send out to you all after this webinar is something called a project discovery sheet. I'll put it in the link, but it's having a process, right? Yes, you've been doing these calls for years. You have experience. And also, yes, you forget to ask things. You forget to ask for the email. You forget to ask how they heard about you, right? Michael Gerber, who wrote The E-Myth, one of the most popular small business books over the last few decades, he says, run your business like you're going to franchise it. Run your business like you're going to franchise it. Even if you're not franchising it, run your business like you're going to franchise it, meaning have a process for everything. Don't shoot from the hip. Don't pull out a blank sheet of paper and start scratching things down when you're talking to this prospect, but have a project discovery sheet. All right. Now, folks, now we're actually ready to call. We're actually ready to call. Anybody have any questions? 2 things we've covered so far. Do some research. Lots of opportunities there. Hopefully you even grabbed a few ideas from that. And then just that reminder to really, truly have the right mindset before you pick up the phone. I'll just give it 30 seconds to see if you guys type in a question on the box. All right. If not, we're going to keep cruising to the meat and potatoes, as they might say. You know what they also say? They also say facts tell and stories sell. Facts tell and stories sell. So as I was kind of thinking through what would be the best way to share, the ideas, best practices, thoughts on this initial phone call, should I just state facts? Here's the questions you should ask. Here's what you do. No, I thought let's do it in a story form. Let's do this in a story form. So what we have here is we have some homeowners, and then we have 2 remodelers. And what I'm going to show you is kind of who the homeowners are, what they're looking for, and we're going to go through the initial phone call experience that Kathy has with Tom with Cornerstone Construction and with Bill with Refined Remodeling. We're just going to focus on her experience that she has on the initial phone call with those 2 remodelers. All right. So let me tell you about Kathy and Chris. They're husband and wife, live in a good sized town. They just moved here this past year because of a job change. They're starting to get some local people and businesses and relationships established, but don't have a lot of local relationships established yet. They bought a home that they knew they were going to need to remodel, and the time has come for them to get started on their kitchen remodeling projects. They've done a little bit of research online. Chris has spoken to a couple colleagues at work about the project. Kathy's been talking to a few of her new friends that she's been making about the project and what they're looking to have done. All right. So that's Kathy and Chris and kind of where they're at, which is getting ready to embark on a kitchen remodeling project that in the end is going to look like the project that you see on your screen there. Okay. Kathy and Chris. Now, Tom with Cornerstone Construction is the first company I'm going to tell you about. We'll refer to them as Cornerstone throughout this little story here. Cornerstone's been in business for 15 years. They have an owner named Tom. There he is in all of his glory. Tom does most of the sales work himself. He's got a production manager. He's an office manager that kind of helps in the office. He's got 1 carpenter. Most of the production work is done through a trusted group of trade partners and subcontractors that they've developed and had a great relationship over the years. They usually do a little over $1 million in revenue a year with projects ranging from kitchens, bathrooms, additions, and a little bit of whole house remodeling. So that's Tom in Cornerstone Construction. And then the second company belongs to this gentleman, Bill with Refined Remodeling. They've been in business for 7 years, so about half the time that Tom with Cornerstone has been. And the big thing to note here is that their business is strikingly similar to Tom's. They haven't been in business for quite as long, but he's built it up to about $1 million in revenue and has some office help, a little bit of production manager help on his team. And like Tom, most of his projects are made up of a combination of kitchens, baths, and additions. Bill also does just a little bit of exterior work. So that's Bill and Refined Remodeling. So if you're following along, Kathy and Chris, homeowners, Tom with Cornerstone, Bill with Refined. Now, what we want to do is walk through. Kathy's going to call both of these folks, both of these companies, and we're going to look at the experience that Kathy has with each of them. So we're going to start with Cornerstone. We'll start with Cornerstone Construction. So Kathy gives a call to Tom with Cornerstone. She initiates the call. In both cases, and in the case of Cornerstone, the office manager answered the phone. So Tom's office manager took down Kathy's name, took down the phone number, type of project she was interested in. The office manager was pleasant, nothing out of the norm there. She has access to Tom's calendar. That's kind of how they have it. They've worked things out so that she knows the days and times that she can book appointments for Tom for. So she was talking to Kathy, and they booked a time for next Tuesday at 4:30. Kathy was pleased with that. He told her that the office manager told her that Tom would look forward to seeing them then. She didn't get her email address, didn't really talk about the project too much. The office manager just got a handle that it was a kitchen project, looked into kind of where she was located. Yes, it's definitely within our trade area, and secured the appointment. Okay, that was that. Now, the call lasted about 4 minutes. Nothing super wrong about what she did, just pretty basic. Frankly, that experience is kind of what the homeowner, what Kathy was probably experiencing. I have a need. I have a kitchen remodeling project. I'm calling to book an appointment, and let's rock and roll. Okay, so that was Kathy's experience with Cornerstone. All right, now let's move on to refined remodeling. So Bill's office manager received Kathy's call, kind of uncovered the reason she was calling, and said, great, do you have 5 to 7 minutes to answer some questions about yourself and the project you had in mind? In Kathy's case, she wasn't running in between 18 different things. She had actually just called herself, right? So she had some time. And of course, Kathy said yes. And Bill's office manager started asking the questions on her project discovery sheet. So questions like, how did you hear about us? Have you visited our website yet? When are you looking to have this project completed by? Etc. She told Kathy, Bill will be calling you later today, and that conversation will probably last 15 to 20 minutes, since he'll really want to know a lot about you guys and your project, and has a little bit of a process that he walks you through. Does that sound good? Kathy said yes, and they actually set up a specific time that Bill was going to call Kathy back this afternoon. All right, and the call ended. So Bill called Kathy back that same day at the time they agreed, and they spoke for 15 to 20 minutes, just like planned. Kathy wasn't surprised by it. The office manager already kind of prepped her, and she was expecting it. Bill asked a lot of questions. Questions like, have you ever remodeled before? If so, tell me about the experience you guys had with that. Kathy shared a little bit about that previous bathroom they had done, and Bill kind of dug in a little bit and understand what went well, what didn't go well, and had a discussion about that. He got to know them and the project. They chatted about the fact that they're new to the area, found some common interests. Let me pause there. So I'll step out of the story just for a moment before we step back into it. Some of this is a little bit more art than science. What I'm trying to, especially this part of the webinar, what I'm trying to do is give you, number one, a very much a Jekyll and Hyde of the simple, maybe not so good way to do it, and the proper way to do it. And yes, I can arm you with questions. I just gave you 4 or 5 of them, and you can listen back to this recording and say, oh, he asked, have you ever remodeled before? If so, how was the experience? That would be a good question to ask. I've never asked that question, but wow, that is a good question, because I can get a feel for what went well, what didn't. If I dig into that a little bit, I can hear, well, this project just took so much longer than we thought it would. Or, we thought it was going to, cost this much, and ended up just change after change, and ended up being way more costly than we thought. You can follow up and ask a question. Well, who did the project for you, and why aren't you calling them back this time? You can dig in and just learn so much about it. And if I hear, for example, the project just took so much longer than we expected it to, man, am I remembering that. That is a pain point of theirs. That's something that they don't want to experience again. That's why they're calling somebody else, frankly. And boy, during my sales process, am I going to talk about how our process makes sure things get done on time, how we make all of the selections up front so that there's not a lot of surprises, not a lot of last second changes that happen, so that we can deliver this kitchen project on time. Because I know, Kathy, that you guys are going to be kind of living out of the bathroom sink for a little bit while we're doing this, and getting it done in a reasonable amount of time is important to you, right? So there's so much. That's a perfect example. There's just so much. There's art versus science. The last thing I said there, before I broke out of the story, is they chatted about the fact that they're new to the area and found some common interests. This gets back to make sure you're listening. If somebody says, we recently moved here, it is very easy not to stop there and ask them about that. Oh, cool. Well, tell me about the project you're thinking about. And you can just bypass it so quickly, so easily. But don't move on to the next question. It could easily be responded with, oh, really? Where did you guys move from? Right? People love to talk about themselves. It shows that you're listening. And guess what? Maybe they just moved from that city where you used to live. Maybe they just moved from where you grew up. Maybe they just moved from the city you went to college in. There's a million different reasons. Maybe you have a cousin that lives there, right? And then even weirder, because life is weird, you mention your cousin's name and they know each other, right? Marketing and sales is getting someone who has a need to know, like, and trust you. Know, like, and trust. And by digging in and really being attuned and listening, these things can pop up. Or maybe there's just screaming kids in the background. That happens when you're talking to prospects. And you might say something like, I want you to know I have a bunch of kids at home, and it is absolutely no problem if you need to pause and do some parent work or whatnot. I understand it completely. That's just being real. That puts them at ease. You might also just say, how many kids do you guys have? And then you kind of share how many kids you have. And then we're off and running, right? Or they say, we can't meet on Tuesday. We'll be heading out the door to football practice. Do you just automatically move past that? Do you just automatically skip past that? Or do you say, oh, where do you guys play at? Maybe there's a common interest. Maybe one of your kids is involved in there. Maybe you know somebody that's involved in there. Just show interest authentically. Just show interest authentically, right? Just so many opportunities that part is the part that is just a little bit more art than science. That just means I'm focused, I'm listening, I'm just being inquisitive. I'm just trying to get to know them, trying to get to know about their life, about who they are, because that's good sales. And that's good just being a good person, right? Or I could just be cold and just ask questions, calculated questions, and just move on, right? All right. So my point is a little bit more art and science, pay attention, listen carefully, and be genuine, show genuine interest. All right, so back to the story with Kathy and Bill with Refines. All right, so he's asking a lot of questions. Bill dug into the project that they were thinking about doing. He asked a lot of questions about the project, age of the home. Started talking about the kitchen. What's the approximate size of the kitchen? How old is the kitchen? When was the last time it's been updated? He started to get to know that the kitchen's been probably about 20 years old. He knows that the cabinets don't go all the way up to the ceiling. There's some soffits up there. He asked, are you anticipating moving any walls? Or are you thinking the kitchen's going to stay in a pretty similar footprint? Is there any major plumbing changes that you guys are anticipating moving? He gets a feel for all of those things, and maybe just ask some questions to get a little bit of a feel for the style of a kitchen that Kathy's wanting. He might mention, have you been on Houzz at all? There's just so many ideas on there, and there's something called an idea book, and you can go and search just different keywords and different kitchen features and whatnot, and you can toss kind of the style and the look and the feel you like into some idea books, and it would be awesome if you guys could share that with me before I come out to see you guys. What a great education. There's some value there. Oh, I've never been on Houzz. Well, yeah, I'll send you a note with the details on that, right? Just lots of questions. Now that he really understood the project, he's starting to get a clear, and listen carefully to this because I'm about to talk about one of the most controversial, probably the second controversial topic that remodelers come up to, which is talking about the budget. That's where I'm going with this, right? So, but this is the key before we get there. Bill's starting to get a clear picture in his head of what this project's going to look like. He's starting to think of similar projects they've done. He understands the age of the home. He understands the neighborhood. He's asking enough questions that he's understanding it. He's starting to get maybe a little bit of a budget range in his head based on his experience, based on similar projects, of where this project might come in at. When I go through this exercise with my remodelers, I would say 9 out of 10 times, if you've been doing remodeling for a while, if you've been selling for a while, if you ask enough questions on the initial call and it's a kitchen project, a bathroom project, we're not talking about an addition where there's so many variables, but a kitchen project like this one, you can start to get a budget range in your head, right? So once you start to get that, once Bill is starting to get a clear picture, once he starts having some budget range numbers rolling through his head, similar projects that sound very similar to what Kathy's describing, he's going to ask, what type of investment are you guys looking to make in this project? Or you could just come out and just flat out say, what is your guys' budget for this project? He could say, what kind of financial investment are you guys looking to make here? Right? There's a lot of different ways that you can say it, but say it. And don't say it until you have a budget range in your mind. Because a lot of times, what are you going to get back? I don't know. That's why we're calling you, right? But other times, because Kathy's a sweetheart, she actually answered, right? And kind of shared the number that was in their head. We were thinking kind of like this, kind of like that. And it was actually a decent and realistic number. For a lot of people who aren't as nice as Kathy, since you've asked enough questions, you have a clear picture of the project in your mind, you can say something like this. Based on what you're describing to me and based on projects that we've done that are very similar in the scope to the one you're describing, Obviously, there are many, many options, a lot of decisions to make. But for a project like this, it's going to range anywhere from 35,000 to 50,000. How does that sound to you? And then be quiet, right? And then be quiet. They're going to have a reaction to that. And that range that you gave is based on a lot of information that you just gathered, right? And you also prefaced it with, there's a lot of different options here, a lot of different things, but it's going to be between 35 and 50,000. Now, one of the reasons I said this is such an important part of your overall process is you're busy. The industry is hot right now. People are very busy. If you're the owner of a remodeling business, you've got so many hats to wear. You've got teams to manage. You've got ordering to manage. You've got clients to satisfy. You've got new prospects. You've got to review your P&L. I won't go any further because I don't want to stress you out. But you've got to protect your time. And a great way to do that is by taking a little bit more time on this initial phone call, especially getting into the budget like this. Because prospects are either going to respond back with, crap, let me pick my chin up off the ground because I thought this thing was going to be like $10,000. Or you're going to get people to say, it's a little bit more than we were thinking, but no, it sounds about right. We're kind of thinking in that range. You'll get both of those, right? So that's an area that it takes some practice. It takes some confidence building. It takes, you need to try it. Your heart may be pounding a little bit the first time you ask it, right? Because, oh crap, I'm going to ask this and then it's going to be an awkward moment or whatever the case might be, or you just never done it before, so you're nervous about it. Once you start to do it and you actually get some answers and then you qualify them a little bit and you say, well, let me, if it's just their budget was 10,000, you said 30,000, next thing you're going to do is not hang up the phone. You're going to serve them. You're going to help them. You're going to educate them. It doesn't mean you're going to go out to their home and waste your time, but you're going to teach them. You're going to break it down a little bit and say, well, let me just talk to you about that a little bit. Like, where did you guys get that number from? Like, what are you thinking? Might be from previous projects they've done. Maybe it's from HGTV, whatever the case might be. And you start to break things down a little bit, right? Maybe just talk about, if it was a bathroom project, just doing a tear out of a tub and putting it back in with tile and a walk-in shower. Let me just break that down for you so you can see a little bit of what's involved here. No, I don't like to break out our estimates into details, but you're following me. We're trying to educate them a little bit. We're trying to teach them a little bit. We're trying to serve them a little bit. And that phone call may end, fairly shortly after that, after you've taught them a little bit, but it's probably not going to go on to an initial in-person appointment. And that's good. You don't have the time to just chase everything. At the same time, man, if I'm needing work, if I don't have a lot of leads, I may be a little bit more loose with this. I may be a little bit more lenient with it. I may, even though it sounds like a bit of a stretch, I may still go out and see them. If it's a referral from a previous client, I'm probably going to loosen it even more. I'm going to invest the time in going out there, even if when I go out there and I see the space, I still have a little bit of bearer of bad news that the budget's not realistic. That's okay too, right? So this is an area we need to work on it. We need to work on it. If you're good at this now, become great at it. If you're not doing it at all now, maybe we can get better at it. And hopefully some of those ideas I shared are very helpful. Feel free to type in the little chat box any questions that are popping to mind. You guys are listening intently to me. At least I hope that's the case. I've not seen many little chat things come through. So feel free to toss that in. Or, Kyle, you're nailing it. This is exactly what I needed to hear. It reinvigorates me. It refocuses me. It reminds me of things I've gotten away from. It reminds me of I need to differentiate myself. Wow, I'm getting lazy on the initial call. Or maybe it's a confirmation of that you're doing it really well. Whatever the case might be, toss a little chat in there for me. All right. That was a little bit of a rant that I went down. I do have a little bit of an outline, a little bit of a script that I wrote out. None of that was in there. I just kind of felt the need to go down that rabbit hole with you. But now we're going to get back to the story so we kind of wrap up Kathy's call with Bill. All right. So now that Bill and Kathy have talked about the budget, Bill got into explaining how Refined Remodeling's process works. He used the 5 powerful words, "This is how we work." And he laid out their design/project development fee. Some of you have that, some of you don't. Explain that he can come out to see the home at no charge. We'll come out. We'll get to know each other further. I'll get to see the space, see the style of the home. We'll take some measurements. We'll share some ideas. I'll be able to give you a better idea of the budget range we're looking at. And he explained that the next step after that, in Bill's case, is a design/project development fee. So he's clearly laying out and explaining his process to Kathy. Each one of you may have a little bit different process there. But on that initial call, it's good to lay that out. Let them know what to expect. Don't surprise them. Give them some clarity on that. The other thing to note as I look on this next slide is that this conversation is 70% Kathy talking and 30% Bill talking. If it's the other way around, we're probably not doing it quite right. If we're doing the majority of the talking, we're not asking enough questions, okay? So I don't know if that's the exact perfect percentage. As you guys may know, 54% of all statistics are made up. But again, if the phones were unmuted, you guys would be roaring. Yeah, but right, it's close to that, 70%, 30%. All right, back to the story. Bill booked a time to meet Kathy and Chris, and then Bill said, hey, Kathy, you're going to be receiving an email from us. It's going to contain a document titled What to Expect at Our First Meeting. I'd like you and Chris to please read through that before we meet. And I'd like to just spend maybe the first 10 minutes of our appointment just reviewing the questions on there, if that sounds good. Kathy, of course, said yes. Excellent. In the email, I'll also include a link to House, which I told you about. You're going to love that. And I'd love for you to create an idea book. In that email, there's a little video that shows you exactly how to create an idea book. What's your email address so I can send that to you? Right? Of course, she's going to give him his email address 100% of the time. It's just he's elegantly leading her through the process. He's also making a commitment. He's saying, I'm going to send you this. And he's going to do exactly what he says he's going to do. That's what prospects are looking for, right? Prospects are wanting somebody that's organized, that's got their stuff together, that's got a process. They clamor for that. All right. So Bill sent this out with just one click because Bill's smart. Heads up, here comes a sales pitch, people. Buckle up. We've had 45 minutes of pure, unadulterated value, and now I get 5 seconds for a sales pitch. Bill sent this out with one click because he uses my Remodelers autopilot system. If you don't know about my Remodelers autopilot system, you should. Go to remodelersautopilot.com. All right, that's it. That's it for the pitch. Moving on. So this question, actually one more thought. That night, Kathy mentioned to Chris how much she enjoyed her conversation with Bill. Why did she enjoy it? Well, she got to talk about herself and the family and the project, and people love talking about themselves. They reviewed the professional email that Bill sent, and they spent the night creating a little bit of an idea book on House. So this question is pretty simple, but it bears asking. Who has the upper hand so far? Bill from Refined or Tom with Cornerstone? Right? The answer, Billy Webb just wrote Bill on the chat box. Okay. Bill has a system. Tom is shooting from the hip, right? Bill has a system, and Tom is shooting from the hip. My question for you to hit you between the eyes a little bit: are you more like Bill, or are you more like Tom? And this is a good question to kind of ponder and think about. A lot of times, you might be kind of somewhere in between. So we want to work towards Bill's side and implementing better practices. All right. Let's kind of break down just the two calls and just reiterate what we saw there. So the differences between the two are substantial, but they're really not earth-shattering. Bill has a clear process, a system for the initial call and the questions that he asks. They don't sound scripted, but they do sound organized. And he just knows a whole lot more about Kathy and Chris's needs, fears, desires, expectations, their projects, knows so much more about them than Tom does. Tom's company didn't technically do anything wrong, but Bill, with the questions, with the time he spent getting to know Kathy and their project, the professional email and resources, he's just built so much more know, like, and trust with Kathy and Chris, right? Bill is showing up to his in-person meeting, already having spent 4 times as much time getting to know Kathy and Chris. He's asked them about how much they're looking to invest in the project, i.e. their budget, and he has it. He set a clear expectation of how the appointment's going to start. If you remember, he mentioned the first 10 minutes of kind of reviewing and going through the what to expect at the first meeting document. Kathy and Chris have prepared for that. Kathy and Chris have received a professional organized email from Bill. They've prepared an idea book that Bill's already reviewed. They're aware of his design and project development fee as a next step after this initial consult. They know about how his process works. There's going to be no surprises there. Do you see how this initial phone call and what happens before Bill even walks to their door has just totally set the stage? He has a process that he follows. He's organized. He's enhanced his process with valuable resources. He's educating. Bill's in control of his sales process, not in a pushy way, but in an elegant way. He's elegantly leading them through the remodeling process. On the flip side, Tom with Cornerstone has none of these things. He has a very basic understanding of the project, hasn't even talked to them, no idea what their budget is, no communications via email, and they don't know what his process is. He looks and talks and acts the same as a bunch of other remodelers, while Bill with Refine stands out. And I've just seen this with dozens of remodelers around the country that I work closely with, that improving and implementing these little things into your initial phone call with a remodeling prospect can just have a huge, huge difference in turning more of the leads that you're already receiving into paying clients. Okay, so that's that, folks. We've got some time for Q&A, and we've also got a little bit of a possible next step and a little sales pitch that I'm going to make if you guys will indulge me. So go ahead and see if there's any questions that you guys might have that you want to toss in the Q&A. I'll read what some of the people have been writing here. Kimberly wrote, if they're way off from the range, I say, they always say, but it's a small kitchen. Yeah, but it's a small kitchen. If they're way off from the range, if they're way off from the range, okay, yes, hang on, let me read it again. If I'm way off from the range, I say, AKA Kimberly gives a range, they always say, but it's a small kitchen. It's a small bathroom. Yeah, let's educate. Let's start educating them. Let's start talking to them about that. Let's start talking to them about the job site cleanliness that you guys do, the permits that you pull, the cost of maybe, sometimes it's good to maybe just take one part of the project and kind of break down the countertop, right? Or break down the cost of maybe one little section just to open their eyes a little bit to it. Billy said, I've been doing this for some time now and it has saved my bacon and puts me across as more professional. Yeah, so Billy and I have worked together quite a bit on his sales process, and he's spending a lot more time on the initial call. Waris, how do you let them know? Hang on, let me go back up. Well, hold on too, because I've got an awesome next step sales process training I'm going to tell you guys about here in a second. How do you let them go when they keep insisting that they want you to come out even if they don't have a budget? Gets a little dicey, right? It gets a little dicey. Part of it is leading the conversation. I think a lot of times that happens when they are leading the conversation versus you leading the conversation. If I start this call with them by saying, we're going to spend, 15, 20 minutes just talking about your project. We're going to try to see if, we're a good fit for what you need done and vice versa. You're a good fit for the type of work we do. At the end of this call, we're going to aim to have that. And, right? So that's part of it. And part of it is just being confident. If they come back to you and they want to come out, you can explain to them, especially if you have like a, project discovery or a project development agreement or design fee that, you need to protect your time. You're working with clients that you can help, that, you only have so much time in your day, right? So I might say, well, time out before going out, let's just talk about it a little bit further here on the phone. Let me just educate a little bit more on where I'm coming from budget-wise, and I don't want to waste your time, and I'm sure you can respect that you don't want to waste my time. Maybe something like that. It's delicate, and I'm somebody that is maybe on the side of being too nice. And Waris, knowing you are a little bit as well. So try to push it back a little bit. Just don't let them walk all over you, and hopefully even some of what I just said is helpful. Sarah said, "You're killing it, Kyle. We all need refreshers as we can get a little bit lazy." Good point, right? Not the killing it part, but the lazy part. We can just get lazy. We can just take it for granted. Going back, it's an example of, you got to be focused. If you're focused, you're into it, and you're not lazy. Lisa said, Kyle, I love how upbeat you are. You also have validated a lot of what I've been doing, but have also made me realize how much more I can learn. Now, Lisa, let me just transition right into my little sales pitch here. Kyle, I love how upbeat you are. You've also validated it. If you like this, you're going to love this, right? So hopefully I've been able to deliver plenty of value to you guys, plenty of ideas. And if that's the only communication we have in the coming months, cool. A lot of you are on my email list, and I hope that you get value from that. But if you really liked this and kind of what I presented and really digging into the sales process, this might be a really nice next step for you. I have a little 8-session live remodel your sales process group coaching. So we're going to get together 8 times for similar go-to meetings like this. We're going to do them throughout September and October. I actually already have the dates all selected. The first one is on Tuesday, September 12th. And what we're going to do is we're going to dig in the entire sales process. So yeah, we're going to make sure we've got all the things that we talked about today really locked and loaded, this initial phone call that we have and what you must do to make a great first impression. We're also going to talk about getting really clear and developing very clearly, this is how we work. We're going to spend a session just talking about our process, having you guys actually write it out, get it on paper, exactly what your process is, because homeowners like to see that, and it's a really good sales tool. We're going to dig into the in-person meeting, how you can prepare for that, what you bring, the approach you should take. Throughout all of these sessions, there's going to be a lot of templates, a lot of tools that you're going to be able to receive. For example, on that in-person meeting, I have a marketing kit, an overview of that. I have some kitchen and bathroom selection sheets that a lot of my clients love. A thank you card script. We'd like to send out a thank you card after that initial in-person meeting. Our next session is going to be called No Project Left Behind. We're going to get into how we track our leads, how we track our sales pipeline, how we follow up with leads, a lot of templates and tools related to that. We're going to talk about what happens when they're sold. They're sold, now what? Here's what we do when the job is sold to continue to show that we're organized, that we have a process. We're going to dig into how to effectively stay in touch with previous clients. And we're also going to have a session that's just kind of open Q&A, a review of what we've learned, and just dig into it. So I don't know how many people are going to sign on, maybe 10, 15, 20 of you. So it's going to be a fairly small group. All of the calls are going to be recorded. If it's anything like a lot of group calls, you might not be able to make all 8 of them, but you'll be able to make a lot of them. And then the cost of it, stagger this to put a little timeliness to it. So for the 8-session class, the live training, if you sign up before August 25th, it's $297. What a steal. If you sign up between August 26th and September 5th, it's $347. Uh-oh, it's getting higher. And if you sign up on or after September 6th, it's $397. So the first class is going to be on September 12th. And in the email that I send you all, I will link to kind of the outline of more details about it, some questions and answers you might have, and the details of what the sessions consist of. And then I had to add this. Oh, wait, there's more. Like any good marketer. The first 10 people that sign up will receive a free one-on-one coaching call with me. So for the first 10 that sign up, we will just have a one-on-one coaching call that you can use anytime between now and the end of the year. All right, cool. So either email me or respond back to one of my emails or give me a call. If you have any emails from me in your inbox, my phone number's on there if you're interested, and we'll get you signed up for it. All right, so we've got 4 minutes left. Let me look at the other questions you guys might have here. Bill is performing my motto, show up like no one else. It doesn't take a lot to stand out in our industry. I mean, Bill here in the story was standing out so far above everybody else, right? And what Billy is saying here is Bill was performing his motto, show up like no one else. It doesn't take a lot to stand out. It just takes a little bit more effort. Somebody's got to run. Jane, she asked, what time is the class? I've set it up actually for just this time, 1:00 p.m. Eastern. And then that kind of works for the West Coasters and whatnot. That's when there'll be different days of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but they'll all be at 1:00 Eastern for the Remodel Your Sales Process class. Cool. Any other questions? I'm also just curious, if I unmute everybody, I wonder how loud it's going to be. Hi, everybody. Say hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. There was like a group of like 10 women that just said hi. Who was that?
That was 3 women.
3 women. Well, you guys have powerful voices. Luckily, there's not a ton of feedback right here. I was anticipating hearing a bunch of extra noise. Anybody have just any questions, or even better than that, give me a takeaway. Give me something that you learned or heard on this call that just kind of was eye-opening for you, or that you're going to implement. Or if you really just want to make me excited, if you're going to sign up for this sales class, you can also say that, just so that I'm like, wow, that's cool. But more than anything else, takeaways. What are some takeaways? What have you heard that you're actually going to take and implement? That was my one goal, right? Give me something.
Hi, this is Raheem from Kingdom Carpentry.
Yeah.
In Philadelphia. Hey, and it was great hearing the feedback when you get to talking about budget.
Yeah,
And so you helped the Army with um, some more wording and more define that area as you always get to
excellent.
come back
Yeah, excellent. It's
that they don't
practice.
know or, you know.
Yeah, it's
So,
kind of a,
yep,
it's
good.
kind of that's the reason a lot of people don't ask it is because it's kind of scary and we don't want to have that awkward moment in it. But boy, once we start asking it, and especially if we do it with the approach that I taught you there, which was get really clear with the picture in your head before you ask it. Yeah, so go out there and ask that, Raheem. That's good. Another
Definitely.
takeaway.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Brad Hall's here
hey Brad,
from Hawkeye State.
go blue.
Yeah, go Bucks. Um, for me, a good takeaway was when you talked about their experiences, their past experiences with remodelers, and really kind of focus in on potential what their problems or issues were, so you could avoid that in the project that you're going to do for them.
Awesome. Yeah, excellent. So what question, the way you could phrase it, there's a lot of different ways, but just, have you ever remodeled before? If so, how was that experience? Right?
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
Kimberly chimed in on the chat. I really like the idea of sending a follow-up email with links to house and our website, and really like that there's a template available in which to do so. Oh, Remodelers Autopilot, you're correct. Another takeaway.
That was a really good one, though.
2 more takeaways, then we're signing off. Hit me. And we're
Kyle,
not
this
signing
is
off.
Lisa.
Yes. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, I had just sent you a chat. The thing that I take away from your session is the research prior to the phone call.
Yeah, it's something that we just overlook, right? We just overlook it.
Yes.
There's just we don't want to come across as awkward or weird, but if you're a good salesperson, there's just so much information at your fingertips that we can learn from, that we can gather, that it's just foolish not to. Yeah.
Good idea.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Lisa. Go implement it. That's all I care about. And then give me one more, folks. Somebody else. I heard somebody clearing their throat like they're about to speak.
It's just reflux, Kyle.
It's just reflux. All right. One more takeaway. I'm not joking about it.
This is
Jeffrey,
Raheem again.
Yeah, go ahead, Raheem.
Okay. Another quick takeaway was great when you talked about leading the call or leading your prospect versus someone leading your business in the time, that you have, and kind of dictating the way the call should go. But if we're confident and stay, doing it elegantly, it'll go well for us.
Awesome.
Our time is important.
Yeah, and it protects your time, and it's what they're looking for too. People will go along. So I'll give you one more example, and this is just kind of a taste of what some of the sales training will do in the Remodel Your Sales Process class. If I'm at the initial in-person meeting and I'm setting the stage for the next meeting, so I've met with them at their house, and maybe I have a showroom, or maybe I want to come back to their home to present them with a budget range or an estimate or design or whatever the case might be. If I explain to them on the initial call or explain to them at the initial in-person meeting, hey, as kind of a next step, as I mentioned to you, I'd like to come back to present our estimate or present the design to you here at your home. And what I like to do is just book that before we even leave here. So there's a little bit of a self-imposed deadline, and also just so that we don't have to chase each other back and forth. Can we get that on the calendar? If I say that, the great majority of the time, they will just go right along with it. I elegantly lead the conversation. They just roll right into it. Frankly, it would be rude if they say no. But also if they say no and they say, well, can you just email it to me? Boy, that's not a red flag, but it's a yellow flag. It's starting to say, are they truly interested? Are they really into this? So getting back to what you said, Raheem, it's when you lead the conversation, people follow. People certainly follow right along with you. And I'm glad you had that takeaway. That tells me you may have been experiencing, over the years or even here recently, of people just kind of pounding through the sales process and taking over the conversation. And that just doesn't lead anywhere good. We want to lead them through it. And that word elegant, you've heard me use it many times, and it's important to me. We're not pushy. Nothing I teach is pushy. We want to lead them. Cool. Thank you, everybody. That was fun. I will send out the recording. A few of you have asked me about that. And just take a look at that email. And hopefully, if it makes sense for you, the Remodel Your Sales Process group, I will talk to you on September 12th for the first of 8 sessions. Thanks all. Everybody say bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.